I really like how you talked about couples should be balancing their personal desires and being practical. You want it to be memorable, but also manageable.
It's nice to have that professional and someone to be that voice because you have someone there on site the day of. The couple won't worry about anything.
You want your family to be there and present for an entire day. You want them to enjoy, and that's what a wedding planner or coordinator becomes really important.
What you say would be like the biggest drivers of cost, how much they would actually spend on their budget?
When we start budgeting, the biggest amount of the budget is always going to be.
Welcome to today's episode of Hawaii Wedding Podcast. I'm Fiona, your host with H&L Studios, where we specialize in wedding photography, videography, DJ MC services, and photo booth. Here with me is our co-host, Charles, the co-founder of H&L Studios. Hi, Charles.
Hi, Theo. Thank you for your introduction. And yeah, we're super stoked to bring you guys this awesome information and this just some great planning tips for those that are planning their at destination locations.
I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Angelica from Anela Events. Angelica is a seasoned wedding planner based in California and Hawaii with years of experience planning beautiful weddings. She's worked with us at H&L Studios on several occasions and is an expert in destination weddings. She's here to share her expert tips on choosing the ideal destination, and we also talk about how to ensure guests have a seamless experience and, of course, building a solid vendor team to bring your dream wedding to life.
So I'm Angelica with Anela Events, and I've actually been have been wedding planning for about 7 years now. I started off my business in Oregon. That's where I fell in love with the wedding industry. I've always loved designing spaces and organizing. And so after I graduated college, I interned under someone in Oregon and wanted to start my own business because I've always thought of being my own boss. So I interned under someone and fell in love with it. After graduation, I started my own website and then Instagram. So Instagram and marketing and collaborating with a lot of vendors in Portland and just the whole Oregon area. I started off with styled photo shoots first. And then I had my first baby and decided to move to California. I'm from here, from California. My whole family is from here. And then my mom's side is in Hawaii. So my whole dream was to branch off in California and in Oahu. And so I had my baby and was like, I'm not going to go back to work. So I'm just going to hustle. So I started photo shoots here in California and collaborating with venues. And then I met Ki'i in 2019, and then she introduced me to so many vendors on Oahu, and it just grew from there. I feel like I met so many people like Charles. We did so many events, and I was just meeting so many people, and that's how it started, was branching out, meeting other entrepreneurs and having a passion for what I do. But also the biggest thing for me was, of course, being there for my couples, but I feel like the vendor community was super important. That's how our name just started branching out. And so now I just do this full time. I travel back and forth, and we take about like 25 weddings per year. I do a lot of destinations, so a lot of full planning weddings for a full year out. We plan with our couples. Majority of the time here in California, we do a lot of day of coordinating. So just making sure the day is ran smoothly, working with the vendors and the couple. But yeah, that's basically what we do. We're wedding planners, but also just being that main support for the vendors and for all of my couples.
Thank you, Angelica. You've been in the industry for 7 years now, and so I know you've had a bunch of experiences with wedding industry and also going through a lot of the trends, different types of wedding trends over the years. So for you right now, Angelica, what would you consider would be your current area of expertise?
Yeah, so my current area of expertise right now, I would say, is the full planning and destination wedding, because I know so much about Oahu now without because of the venues that I worked at there on the island and all the vendors that I grew relationships with. But I love working alongside my couples for a full year out. And a lot of my destination couples is a full year of planning. So I like to make sure I'm on the same page as them. I choose a lot of the vendor team when we're planning the designing. We designed pretty much their whole entire wedding based off of their Pinterest board. And then a lot of the times we do the timeline, the floor plan, and a lot of those little details. So I think the full planning and of course day of is like super important. I feel like I know so much about how to run through the day smoothly now that I've been in the industry, and how to navigate and pivot if there's things that arise, if problems do arise on the wedding day. So a lot of the times I feel like it is the full planning that I would really dive deep into the wedding industry for the couples.
Right. And that's because you have a lot of couples like going for destination wedding, and that does take a lot of time to plan out. Yeah, a lot of our viewers or listeners would really want to hear about your experience as far as destination wedding. And so for you, Angelica, how far in advance should couples start planning a destination? What are the key milestones in planning this process?
Yes, that's actually a really good question. I feel like a lot of the times I have couples that start planning at 8 months to 1 year. So that's actually a good time. I feel like Oahu, though, a lot of the venues get booked out pretty quickly because it is a destination. Everyone wants to get married there. So a lot of my couples are from the mainland that are getting married there. So every time I do have a couple that wants to get married on the island, I always recommend at least checking if the venue has availability a year out. So that's always the first step, is to book the venue, because it does get booked out pretty quickly. And I would say choosing the date would really depend on what season you want to get married in. I feel like the season and the weather. So I always educate the couple too on the weather. I feel like during October, November, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's a little rainy there, like much more than the summertime. I know it rains a bunch, but randomly on the island, but I feel like I had a bunch of fall weddings on Kualoa Ranch area, and it's always raining. So I feel like the season is really important, and of course budgeting too. Budget money is a very important topic when couples start planning their wedding, especially when they're doing destination. So budgeting, and then of course your vendor team. Always reaching out to the vendors. I have a vendor recommendation list for a lot of my couples, and like a destination wedding guide that they can use when they're planning their wedding on Hawaii. So having that, just making sure all the vendors are available, and of course if they match your vibe. I feel like the couple has to meet with the vendors through Zoom to see if that they would really want to work with on the day of the wedding. So I feel like those are the three important essentials to start planning a destination wedding.
Wow, that's really interesting. I really like how you talked about trying to iron out your venue so you can get that solidified and get your date, having your actual wedding date, because you really can't do it without having a venue locked in. I know you also mentioned like the seasons, right? How you talked about like summertime. If you can, like just dive a little deeper as far as what seasons you see, especially when it comes to Hawaii. Like when you just think about the whole year in general, what are your thoughts on like certain parts of the year? I'm sure our listeners would benefit from hearing about what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I feel like Hawaii in general is like a year-round thing. There's always weddings, especially on the weekdays. My weddings are always on weekdays, which is nice because I can do a lot of the weekend weddings here in California. But when people do think of destination wedding, I feel like they think of spring and summer. So those are the most popular dates. I feel like is always, for me, April, May, June, July. August are very like popular. And then I do have some in the fall. I think my weddings pretty much end in October, November time, but very rarely. I feel like a lot of my weddings are always in spring and summer.
Awesome. I guess what are your thoughts as far as maybe weddings during, I don't know, like the holidays time, like November, December, possibly? I don't hear too many people discuss that. I guess what are your thoughts on weddings around there for November?
I know I have a lot of weddings on the Thanksgiving side, but I feel like a lot of couples, it really depends. I feel like on the holidays, it is a little more expensive, especially the flight. So that's something to account for is the flights and also just the hotel rate. But as far as vendors, I feel like a lot of the times, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the times couples just book the wedding and then they just expect the vendors to be available. But a lot of the times, some vendors actually take it on the holiday. Christmas is really important to me, so I always block off December.
Yeah.
I do have one like 2 days before Thanksgiving this year, but I'm flying back before Thanksgiving. So holidays are really important for me, especially being with family. So that's something to take account to for some couples. Like we do have families, unless some people or just some vendors are like, well, yeah, I could take it on a New Year's Eve. I've had weddings on New Year's Eve a bunch because a lot of the couples here in San Francisco, they love when the fireworks come on. So things like that. I think it really depends on the vendors too, if they want to take it on. Yeah.
I know for us, I can just speak briefly on it. I know for us, we do value our holidays. So we do block off a lot of December. So I guess for our couples, it would be more beneficial to have your wedding or plan it during more, traditional times versus of the year versus during holidays. But even some kind of sneak up on us and we often turn them down. Like some couples do plan their wedding on like Veterans Day or like 4th of July. And then honestly, we don't accept those either just because we do value our team's time with their family and their friends. And yeah, definitely, I would also encourage couples to kind of book it through more traditional spring, summer, possibly fall. You have a lot more availability with your vendors. Also, you mentioned that often in Hawaii, you're booking, or like your couples in Hawaii are often doing it during the weekday. And I'm sure you know that sometimes they have more availability as far as the venues during the week. And a lot of their guests are coming in from different locations. They don't necessarily have to be on the Saturday where most people are off because everybody's like on vacation for the most part. So that typically ends up happening on weekdays. And we love weekdays too because we definitely have those available for us. It's just the weekends get tight. It's really tough. It's rare we have to tell a couple we're unavailable.
Yeah, and it's a little more cost effective on a weekday. There's always different rates for the weekday versus a weekend. So that's something I tell couples too. You can always look into, if it's a destination wedding, a lot of the guests will already take off some work, especially here if they're on the mainland. I feel like a lot of my couples who are local, they do weekend wedding. So it really depends.
While destination wedding does take a lot of effort for couples and guests to travel all the way to the venue. And for you, Angelica, what can you tell the couples on how they can ensure their guests have a seamless experience when traveling to the wedding destination, the wedding venue?
So there's this new trend that I tell all of my destination couples to do a virtual invitation where you can actually communicate with a lot of your guests through text message or email. That way, if anything changes with destination information, we can inform them right away versus a handheld. It's different when you do a handheld invite because then you can't really communicate with them right away. And I always recommend to a lot of couples to start a wedding website, which can include a lot of the travel accommodations, like where their room blocks are, if there's any transportation that is offered to the guests, and the addresses of the venues, what time everything is going to be, what to wear, any dietary restrictions for vendor for the meals. So a lot of the time they say, let's make the wedding website. That way, when you do if you do send out a virtual invitation or even a handheld one, they can always refer back to the wedding website because you already informed them, all of the information that you need to give them.
Yeah, that's great, because plans do change often, especially during destination, and just having something more digital that you can update easily and have your guests be aware of would be really great. What are some wedding website
resources that I use for my business called Finally? Paperless Post. So a lot of the couples that can actually create a wedding website or save the date or RSVP is paperless posts. For wedding website, I think the knot.com and Zola is really good.
Are those free, you think, or do they have any kind of costs associated with them?
The knot.com and Zola is also, they're free. Paperless posts, you would have to pay. I feel like it depends on how much you're sending out. The reason why you have to pay is because you're texting it to everyone. And you have your own website, yeah. So you would have to pay just a small fee depending on how many guests they're sending it out to. But they have really nice templates too that a lot of couples can choose from. And then it's more like iPhone for Androids. And then you can also do it on email as well.
Okay, great. For our listeners, we'll definitely link those for you guys in the show notes and description.
I do want to know
thank you.
where destination wedding takes a lot of logistics and planning. And for everything to be smooth for you, what are the essential elements to consider when choosing a destination wedding location?
Oh, okay. So that's a good question. I feel like the first thing that couples should consider is where they imagine their wedding to be. I've done so many weddings in Europe already too. A lot of my couples here in California want to do like a Rome wedding, or I've done one where it was in Italy. So I've done a bunch of Italy weddings as well, because the couple loves Italy, and that's their first love. They love Italian food and they love the beautiful views. Or I have couples, of course, that loves Oahu because of the tropical, the beach vibes, everything like that. So I think it comes from what the couple really wants and envisions themselves getting married at. And of course, the next thing I always say is budget as well. If it does fit within budget, then I would say go for it, depending on the venue and how far they want to go. And a lot of the times, a lot of the destination weddings that I do have are smaller guest counts, so around 60 to 100 wedding guests. So it really depends on how, if you want to, the wedding that I did in Rome, they did 60 guests. And that was like their dream wedding, was because they wanted to always get married in Rome. And it fit within budget. So I always tell couples, like, when I do meet with them, if they don't have any venue or location, I tell them, here are the venues that I worked at.
If you can talk about the difference between the two, and then your opinion, like, do you feel like destination weddings are a bit more affordable than like local weddings, or vice versa? Like, what are your thoughts as far as like the cost?
Yeah.
And budgets.
I feel like the cost, actually, it's been the same, even here locally. In California and Oahu, their price points are literally the same. I've had couples who doesn't do a destination wedding and they do something local here in San Francisco or the Bay Area, and they still go all out with the decor or the food or the beverage. Sometimes a lot of them do open bar. So the range between, I would say, if you do want to do 100, 150 guest count in California and in Oahu, the good budget to start off at is like around 60 to 80K. That's something that I've been seeing a bunch. I've had couples that do come to me and say, hey, like, our budget is at 30 grand, which is totally doable, but you have to cut so many things out. You also have to think about the vision you want. If you want to do grand flowers or minimal little flowers on the tables or things like that. So I do have couples that do the way low budgeting versus the highest budget that we can do. So it really depends on the couple, but I always educate them and say, hey, this is what's realistic. If you're going to be traveling to Oahu, your budget's going to be around the 60 to 80K max. And that's the real, I feel like everything's just raising up every single year. Venues and as business owners too, we raise up our pricing based off of our, experience. I feel like a lot of the times for me, I'm just the educator for all these couples. And I talk so highly about my vendors that I always work with. That way they can hopefully book with my vendor recommendation list on there. So yeah, it's really different it's the same. I feel like it's the same with California and Hawaii.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
Just one last question on cost. I know that's always a concern for couples. Would you say would be like the biggest drivers of cost? If you were to speak with a couple in a consultation, like what would be some key indicators knowing whether how much they would actually spend on their budget? If you were to just carry them, you start asking the questions and then you hear these things, you can have a good idea of how much they're going to spend.
Yeah. So I have this thing that I use, a platform called Aisle Planner that I use for a lot of my couples when we start budgeting. And we base off of like the biggest amount of the budget is always going to be food and drinks. So I always tell them at least 40 to 50% of your budget's going to be the food and the drinks. And then the rest of that 50 is going to be split between all of the vendors that you're going to hire for your wedding day. But on Aisle Planner, I create this budgeting sheet for them and let them know this is how things are usually based depending on both sides of the Hawaii or California or destination in general. And so that's how I organize all of budgeting. But also a lot of my couples tell me too, hey, this is our budget and we already have like how much we want to spend for each category of the vendors. So I try my best to respect that. And then when I do search for the vendors with their vendor team, when I get all the quotes and contracts and packages from different types of vendors, that's when I relay the information to the couple and say, hey, this is based off of your price point. This vendor would actually work really well with you. So it really depends, on the couple there.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you discussed about couples balancing their personal desires with also some practical consideration, and because they want to ensure that the destination and the venue.
I guess when it comes to like vendors, like what are some things, like couple aside, what are some things that you look for personally? It's just for me to know. This won't be on the podcast. Just what are some things you look for in vendors that you want to work with and recommend to couples?
Yeah, I think for you guys, the reason why I recommend you guys a lot is because you guys have all 4 services all at once. And that's what a lot of couples need. Something where we're not searching for, like Mari and Devin, that wedding that we had, that was the first wedding I've had that booked all 4 services through you guys. And second wedding, because I think we, for Kimberly and Dylan and April, they also did DJ. They did DJ, whatever it was. And
video. So I think photo was...
photo was with my
like
friend.
A mainland girl.
Yeah, my friend.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But a lot of couples look for that, like something where it's like a one-stop shop instead of us going through like 20, 30 consultation calls.
For sure.
Yeah. But other than that, like with other vendors that I work with, I think someone that I have a really good relationship with on the wedding day is really important for me. And someone that I could be comfortable in just recommending them to my couples. So I have a lot of, vendor friends where I just have kept in touch with and just started recommending a bunch. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I really like how you talked about how couples should be balancing their personal desires and with being practical as well, because this really ensures the destination and the venue are both, you want it to be memorable, but also manageable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And carefully evaluating these factors really helps ensure that their experience is not only beautiful, but also really practical for both couples and guests. And so a lot of the budget is really allocated on vendors for the entire experience. And so for you, what are the key factors to consider when choosing vendors, particularly for a destination wedding?
Yes. I feel like it does start off with how much they would want to spend per vendor. But also, again, like I always recommend to couples to always do a virtual call, especially if it's going to be with the videographer and photographers, because I want my couples to feel comfortable in front of a camera, but also in front of the person that's taking the pictures for them. So I always recommend like at least meet with the photo, video, and then the DJ, because the DJ usually does the emceeing, and you want to make sure there's someone that you vibe with and your guests will enjoy. So a lot of the times when I tell my couples, if you're building your vendor team relationship, and is really big to me, building that relationship with, for me as myself or individually, I try my best to do a lot of Zoom calls with my couples or phone calls, and I give them, if they can text me anytime they want to. So I'm not only their wedding planner, but someone they can trust, and also as a friend if they need someone to talk to. A lot of the times my brides always talk to me just sometimes about life and not only about wedding. So when I tell them to schedule these calls with your vendors to see if there's someone that you want to spend 8 to 10 hours on your wedding day with, because they're going to be there. We're the ones who make or break their wedding day, to be honest, and making that special day for them. And so that's something that I always recommend to couples is make sure they're within budget, but also talk to them first and see if there's someone you want to hire for your wedding.
There's a lot of different types of vendors nowadays, honestly. It goes beyond catering and like food and
Wedding planners,
wedding planners, yeah, of course, definitely. And these vendors, they usually have to be, maybe you have to create, like you've mentioned, you're creating a vendor team for a very special day of your life. And for you as a wedding planner, I think how important is it for couples to hire a wedding planner, a coordinator, especially when planning a destination wedding?
Yeah, I feel like for me, when I got married, something that was super important to me, and the reason why I started my business was because I realized that not because I am a wedding planner, but also I had the chance to become a bride as well. And so something that our family as Filipinos, we all want to be involved in setting up or doing something. You always have to do something. And that's something I didn't want my family to do, because a lot of the times they're like, oh, we can set out the favors, we can do this. And I was like, no, I want to actually dress up and enjoy my wedding. So I did have a day of coordinator at my wedding, and I feel like that's important because a lot of my family members, like my mom, my sisters, my aunties, didn't have to worry about who's doing what. We trusted someone to actually set those all the personal items out on the wedding day. And so that's something I carried on to my business. And I tell a lot of my couples, you guys are going through so much life. You guys are working, traveling, you guys might have kids. So it's nice to have that professional and someone to be that voice for the couple while I'm the one talking to a lot of the vendors. And I'm the one organizing a lot of the timeline, creating the floor plan. And they don't know much about creating the timings of the day. So I tell them, like, this is what all my packages include. We do a lot of personal items. We set those up for you on the day of. And also, I like to start off in the hotel rooms with a lot of my couples. And that's something a lot of planners don't do. I start off with my couples, checking in on them and making sure my vendors are okay, like the photographer and videographers, that they're okay. They need any personal items like the vow books, things like that. So we set that aside. I set that aside for when the photo and video team comes to the hotel. And so I'm basically just there to make sure I'm supporting everyone in all aspects of the wedding day, whether it's a couple, the vendors. And so that's something I tell couples is it's important to have a wedding planner because you don't think of these things on your wedding day. Like the little details of who's doing what. We're there to answer any questions the vendors have as well, and even the catering company. I really think, not just because I'm a wedding planner, but I also think just making sure you have a day of coordinator. It doesn't have to be a full planner, like for a whole year. It's just as long as you have someone there on site the day of, then you guys the couple won't have to worry about anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very important that someone is taking care of those little details that you mentioned. You want your family to be there and present for an entire day. You want them to enjoy. And that's what a wedding planner or coordinator becomes really important. I have a question on that one, Angelica. What elements on planning a wedding or maybe during the wedding day that is that could possibly be overlooked
during the day. I guess what are those details that can be missed out, usually missed out during the planning stage?
A lot of the times it's who's going to be tearing down at the end of the night. A lot of my couples are, a lot of the vendors have left already, and everyone, okay, who's going to be taking care of all of these things, like the extra alcohol bottles that was left at the bar, or who in Hawaii, surprisingly, a lot of catering companies, they don't bus tables. So a lot of them don't. So we are in charge of making sure that those things are set, put away, all of the trash is put away, or the personal items. The couples always want to keep their signing book, their welcome signs, and things like that. So a lot of the times, I feel like a lot of couples don't think of that coming into a wedding planning of like, who's going to be doing these at the end of the night? Or, which is something really important to me too. When I got married, that was something that was really concerning. Who is going to do this? I don't want to tear down. So we do we don't bus tables, but we do assign, if the catering company does have someone, I always recommend hiring more staff to do that. So that's something that was always missing. Or I feel like transportation too. A lot of the times in Hawaii, or even here in California, there's no sometimes they don't think of transportation of how the bride and groom is going to get to the venue or the whole bridal party. So transportation is just making sure that they get from ceremony to reception. I think those are like the main things. The little things, I usually communicate that to the couples beforehand, like to make sure they give me the personal items list, or all the guest list is all done. Floor plan looks good, timeline looks good, things like that. But those are kind of the big things that we don't think about on the wedding. It's how are we going to get there? Who's doing this at the end of the night? And things like that.
Anyway, visual talent, right? That's really important and very, yeah. So yeah, Angelica, thank you so much for sharing a lot of your experience, your advices. I know for sure a lot of couples are going to benefit from what we were able to discuss today. I do have, there's more questions for you. It's something that we usually ask our guests before we end the episode. And not really related anymore, but that's the topic that we discussed. So I want to ask, what is your favorite resource that you recommend for couples planning their wedding in Hawaii?
So the favorite resources, I always, I start off my couples with a platform called Aisle Planner. And that kind of helps a lot of couples plan their wedding, and they can include vendors on there as well. So that's
Is there a cost for that? Are couples able to utilize that like on their own, or is it something that you have to provide?
Yeah, so if they book through me, they don't have to pay for a Aisle Planner. And if they actually want to use it without, myself, I believe there's a fee as a bride and groom. The knot.com is also free. They can use the knot.com. That way they can organize everything on site. I do have a lot of couples doing Google Docs too. There's a lot of wedding planner templates on there where they can choose from and just add in a lot of the budgeting, the vendor contacts, and everything like that. But the one that we use a bunch is called Aisle Planner.
It's nice. Yeah, I know who've had years and years of experience with these resources, and we've talked about your experience as a wedding planner. And for you, what do you believe is the reason you do what you do? We've done specifically in wedding industry or destination wedding.
Yeah, I think the reason why I do what I do is because I love designing weddings. I love designing spaces and transforming it into something that the couple envisions. I don't only do couples, I do a bunch of events as well. So even if it's like parties or just little like celebrations, we do a bunch of those as well, where we're working with just the client and not a couple. But something that keeps me going is my family. I love staying home with them, and also being able to have my own schedule where I can do my Zoom calls on the weekdays, and then at nighttime it's just family time, and then on the weekends We do some events, but Sundays we actually have off sometimes. It's nice that we get to schedule our own week, and we have the ability to control our events and which ones we want to take. So if it's on the holidays, we can be like, oh no, we don't do events on the holidays. So things like that is something that keeps me going. But the number one thing, and I've always remembered this from the very beginning, is I would say friender support. All the support that I get from my vendor team, and just growing with everyone and seeing where they're at in life and in business is really nice. So that's why I do a lot of styled photo shoots, because it's a nice time for all of us to get together and also design together. So that's something that I hold true to my heart, is just making sure all my vendors, we have that great friendship and we can support each other when we really need it.
Last question. Where can people find you and get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I'm always on Instagram. That's where I market a lot of my work. So it's going to be at Anela Events. I also have a website that has a bunch of portfolios and who we are, which is anelaevents.com. And we're also on Facebook. So a lot of the times I have a lot of reviews on there as well. So Facebook is just Anela Events.
Hey, cool. All right. Thank you, Angelica. Thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your tips on planning destination weddings or just weddings overall. Your insights were super helpful. I know for sure listeners got a lot out of it. And it was really great having you today.
Thank you for having me and inviting me. When you guys emailed me, I was like, oh yeah, first. I love you to know
Sure.
do it.
Yeah, we definitely love working with you too. So we'll definitely put all the links to where the couples can connect with you down in the show notes and description. So definitely check out down below to get in contact with Angelica.
Thank you so much.
If you're searching for wedding photography, videography, photo booth, DJ MC, or need wedding resources, go check out our website at www.hnlstudios.com. Also, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment to stay on the loop for upcoming episodes. See you next time!